Hello, dear students. A very warm welcome to all of you in my YouTube channel, and hope you all are fine and taking care of your health. So, this is Sayed Farnaz here with a beautiful poem to discuss with you. So, without wasting more time, let's begin. So, dear students, today we are going to learn a very beautiful poem entitled as Where the Mind is Without Fear. And you know who is the poet of the poem? Guess? Okay, let me give you a hint. He has written our national anthem too. Now guess? Yes, it's Rabindranath Tagore. Before starting the poem, let's have a brief introduction of the poet. Rabindranath Tagore was an Indian poet. He was born in 1861 in what was then Calcutta. Now we are calling it Kolkata. He was and is the foremost poet in the Bengali language, and was also versed in short story, play, and essay writer, as well as painting and composing music. Actually, he started writing poetry early and throughout his life. He would publish several books as well as a complete collection of his work. He wrote poetry as 8 year old. Can you imagine? He wrote hundreds of texts and some 2000 songs. The best thing about him is, in 1913, he became the first non European to win the Nobel Prize in Literature. His goal was to blend the best of Indian and Western poetry. An element of his writing clearly present in his poem, Where the Mind is Without Fear. During the time in which this poem was written, India was still under the control of British Empire. In 1915, only 5 years after this poem was written, Tagore was awarded a knighthood, but he gave it up in protest only for 4 years later when British troops killed 400 Indian demonstrators. Tagore died in 1941 in Calcutta. Means again, Kolkata. Where the Mind is Without Fear. This poem was written during the reign of the British in India, prior to the country got its independence from colonial rule. In fact, Tagore died just a few years before in 1947 when India became independent. So, the country that he was living in was a country under operation. However, the operation was not just physical in nature but mental as well. The Indian population had started believing that they would never be free. They were always afraid of what they would be subjected to next by the British administration. They had lost their self confidence and dignity too. Thus, their spirit had been entirely drained out of them, and they were left pessimistic. Pessimistic means they were totally living like a negative life with the negative thoughts, and they were believing that they will never get freedom. Many Indians were denied admission into the elite educational institutes, which were meant exclusively for the children of colonial officers. Means only the Britishers' children could get education over there. And later on, only rarely were the Indians admitted into those institutions, educational institutions, and that too, if they were to gain entry there, they had to belong to the upper classes. Means only upper classes people could get education in those institutions, but that is also in limited number. And you know, especially that class of the native population that chose to side with the British and were always at their back and call, means in favor of Britishers. If those people are in favor of Britishers, then only they could get education in those institutions. As a result of this, what happened? The Indian nation states were then willing to fight it out amongst themselves to carry favor with the colonial rulers. All this upset the poet greatly. So he dreamed of a better tomorrow, of a better India, one in which his country would stand up for truth, for hard work, for reason, and for determination. He wanted his countrymen to stand united against the British, make themselves responsible for themselves, and make themselves to fight for their freedom. He wanted them to be open-minded and for their actions to speak louder than their words. By referring to God as Father, he was saying that all of his countrymen, means the people of his country, Indians, were the children of God. Hence, they must not discriminate amongst themselves on the basis of caste or creed, but must stand up for each other. They have a common goal, and that is independence, and must work side by side to achieve it, means to achieve independence. Let's have a brief introduction of the poem about its title and all. So, dear students, Where the Mind is Without Fear is the title of the English translation of the poem by Rabindranath Tagore, which was first written in Bengali. Means this poem was written in Bengali first, and later on it was translated in English language. This poem is a prayer to the Almighty, to the God, by the poet for his country and countrymen. It was first written in Bengali and then it was published in 1910 as part of Tagore's collection of poetry entitled Gitanjali. Gitanjali is his most famous collection of poetry. The English translation was composed by Tagore himself around 1911 when he was translating some of his work into English, that time only on the request of William Rothenstein, he translated it. It appeared as poem number 35 in the English Gitanjali. Okay, in the book that is the composition of poems, the collection of poetry, Gitanjali, in that book, this poem stands at 35th number. So it was published by the Indian Society of London in 1912. In 1917, Tagore read out the English version and then called Indian Prayer at the Indian National Congress session in Calcutta. The poem is based on the pre-independent India which was under the rule of the British. The poem often appears in textbooks. President Barack Obama, means President of America that time, the former President of America, that is Barack Obama, he used the first two lines of the English version of this poem in his 2010 speech in the joint session of Indian Parliament in New Delhi, and that is really a notable thing for us. So before the explanation, I will read the poem and then we'll have the explanation and discussion on it. Where the mind is without fear, and the head is held high, where knowledge is free, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls, where words come out from the depth of truth, where tireless striving stretches its arms towards perfection, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary desert sand of dead habit, where the mind is led forward by thee into ever-widening thought and action, into that heaven of freedom, my Father, Let my country awake. The first line of the poem, a part of which is the title itself, holds a very significant meaning. Where the mind is without fear and the head is held high. Means here, fear in this line, it refers to the fear inculcated in the minds of Indians under the British rule. Here the poet is speaking about the miserable, means very sad life led by people dominated by the Britishers. The poet envisions India as a country where the people's minds are free from fear, and they live a dignified life. He also wants to convey that freedom can be attained only when the minds are fearless and the head is held high with respect, with dignity. In this line, where knowledge is free. The next one, that is where knowledge is free. Means here what poet wants to say, that gaining independence or getting independence would also give them the freedom to acquire knowledge and be self-reliant, which was restricted during the British rule. Means if you are free, then obviously we can get education freely. That time it was not possible for everyone to get education. So later on he says in the next line, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls. Here the poet asks about the various evil and crept into the society at that time. What he is speaking about? The British, who used the divide and rule policy by creating rivalries among different sections of the society. Narrow domestic walls refers the walls of religion, race, caste, creed created by people. Means so many discrimination. Even nowadays we are unfortunately facing these things in society. So it should not happen. That is the thing he was dreaming in form of poem, and he was trying to show us that we want such type of country which should be free from all these evil thoughts, evil minds. So later on he says that it may also refer to the various superstitious beliefs. Means that time there were many people who believed in superstitious beliefs, means superstitious things. Now also we have superstition in our society, but that time it was more. So that later on he thought about this and he wrote. And what he says, superstitious beliefs that prevailed in the society during that time should be removed. Those thoughts should be removed from the minds of people. In the next line he says, where words come out from the depth of truth. What he says here implies that the poet envisioned his countrymen to live their lives with honesty and utmost truth. Obviously, we want truth. Everywhere it should be truthfulness. Right? Do you think that people should lie? Of course not. Here in this line, what he says, that whatever people will say, it should come from their heart. Means, and that should be truth only, nothing else. Next line, that is where tireless striving stretches its arms towards perfection. Tell me one thing in comment box please, that what special thing you find out in this line. Of course this line is something different than other lines, so please let me know. So here in this line, here it is a signification has been used here for tireless striving, and the poet says that one's goal should be to attain perfection, means to be an ideal country, and all those years of struggle would finally reach its goal of attaining freedom and perfection. But when it will happen? only when we will struggle to get the perfectness, to get the perfection. Next lines, what the poet says, see, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary desert sand of dead habit. The poet here uses metaphor in these lines for reason and habit. He refers to reason as a clear stream that is pure and which is not contaminated. Here he is speaking about the thoughts of people which he says should be clear, noble, honest, and free from all sorts of corruption. And next he says, dreary desert sand of dead habit. Here you will find out alliteration. The sound is repeated. So here he also refers to the evils in the society like the superstitious practices that lack logic and reason. Obviously, if there is logic, then there is no place for superstition. And people have superstitious thoughts and practices in their minds and life, then obviously there is no place for logic and reasoning. The last three lines of the poem, where the mind is laid forward by thee into ever widening thought and action, into that haven of freedom, my Father, let my country awake. In these last three lines, the poet prays to the Almighty. Here he has used the word Father. Father means the Almighty, God. For what? For what he prays? For his guidance, for the guidance of God and support to attain independence. The poet wishes his countrymen to be led forward by their noble thoughts and actions, noble thoughts and actions of people themselves. He refers to freedom as a heavenly place and addresses God as Father, asking him to awaken his people and help them reach that glorious place. So, here, this is a very beautiful message he conveys, and it's a dream, it's a prayer by Rabindranath Tagore, and it's so beautiful. So, here it is concluded. Poem is very famous, and also this is prescribed for class 10th in Maharashtra State Board syllabus for English subject. So some words are there which might be difficult for some students to understand. So let's see, take a look. Here see, fragments, this word is used and it is noun and a plural form of the word fragment, and it is used as a small part which is broken off or separated from something. Okay, broken particles also we can say. Next is narrow, which is adjective, and it means limited in extent or in a limited amount or scope. Next, say domestic, which most of you know. Domestic means existing or occurring inside a particular country or place or area, and which is not foreign or international. And the next word is here tireless, which is an adjective having or showing great effort or energy. Now, what does it mean by striving? It is a verb, and it is a present participle form of the word strive. That is, it means make great efforts to achieve or obtain something, to get success. But one must struggle for this. Now, the next is stretches, which is a verb. It is a third person singular present tense of the word stretch, that means strengthen or extend one's body or a part of one's body to its full length, typically so as to tighten one's muscles or in order to reach something. Next is clear, which is an adjective. It is transparent or unclouded or pure. Okay, so next is stream, which is a noun. Stream, a small narrow river. with a clear flowing water. Now, next is dreary, which is an adjective. Dreary means depressingly or dull and bleak or repetitive. Now, word the is used here, which is an older form of the word you. It was used in old times in Old English literature. Ever widening, which is an adjective, it means constantly increasing in scope. So these are some words and their meanings. I hope you will get it. Now let's discuss what is the central idea of the poem, where the mind is without fear. In this poem, the poet envisions the India of the future, or future India, we can say. In this country, no man will live in fear. Instead, they will have a strong sense of self dignity. They will all possess a share of knowledge or wisdom. No Indian will discriminate against another on the basis of class or caste or reed or color, or all its various states will join hands in the fight against the British. Every man will speak the truth and try to achieve self perfection. They will stop believing in their superstitions and question these with the help of reason instead. Means questioning the superstitional thoughts. And they will follow the logic and reason instead of believing in superstition. And also, it is like that they will follow the path of God, and both their thoughts and actions will be righteous. Only then will India be truly free, and not just in political terms but in human terms as well. They will be independent not just in name but also in spirit. Now, this was the central idea. Now, what must be the theme of this poem? So, let's take a look on that also. The poem was composed in the early 1900s, and when India was struggling for independence from the British rule. It is the poet's prayer actually to the Almighty, seeking His guidance and support to help the countrymen attain freedom. In attaining freedom, the poem is patriotic in nature, and the poet expresses his love for his country and speaks about the vision he has for India and its people. Through his poem, he gives us an idea about the kind of life that people were living during the British rule that time. The stringent rules, policies, economical and political uncertainty were some of the factors that caused fear in the minds of Indians. They could not live a dignified and respectful life in their own country. Obtaining a proper education was restricted for various classes of the society, causing literacy among people and making them believe in superstitions. The British used the divide and rule policy that time against the Indians to make them fight among themselves. And there was discrimination based on caste, creed, race, and religion, etc. It was during this struggle for independence, and the poet says that he envisions a country where there is no fear in the minds of people and education is attained by all. And the people are enlightened and do not create walls of discrimination. He wants his countrymen to be honest and thoughtful. He prays to God, seeking his guidance for attaining independence and awakening his countrymen into that beautiful haven of freedom. The poem Where the Mind is Without Fear is written in free verse without any rhyme scheme or meter followed throughout the poem. The poem is one single complex sentence with the sub clauses beginning with where and the main clause coming at the end. And actually, this poem is written in the form of a prayer to the God to lift the country to a state where freedom would be felt at its best. Now, let's discuss the poetic device used in this poem. Line 6 contains an example of personification. It says, where tireless striving stretches his arms towards perfection. The speaker is describing the kind of world in which he would like to live. Striving is personified as both tireless and as possessing arms that it could reach out towards something. In the next lines, reason is compared to a clear stream that has not lost its way into the dreary desert, sand, and dead habit. That is line 7 and 8. And here we have two metaphors. Reason is a stream of water, and thoughtless habit is a desert. In other words, in this ideal world, reason does not dry up in the desert, but rather it continues on winding its way with some vigor through the sands. Through the sands. So, in the final lines, we realize that the speaker is actually talking to someone he refers to as thee and calls my father. This father might be the speaker's actual dad, or he might be speaking to God. This is an example of apostrophe. Okay, apostrophe is used here. So where a speaker talks to something or someone who is absent or dead or cannot respond. Even alliteration is also used here. So I have tried to explain this poem in detail. I hope you like it, and if you like it, so do like, share, and subscribe my channel. And if you want to know about more upcoming videos, then you can press the bell icon. If you have any question related with this poem, ask me in comment box. I will try to answer them definitely. And thank you very much for watching this video, and see you with a new topic. Till then, take care.